I used to think privacy was a basic human right, something boring people argued about in college dorms and bad roommates. I didn't know it was something you could lose, slowly, inch by inch, until one day you're standing barefoot in your own kitchen at midnight, staring at a chair that definitely wasn't there when you went to bed, and your stomach drops because you already know who moved it. The first time it happened, I told myself I was imagining things. I'd been living alone for 6 months. Tiny one-bedroom, third-floor walk-up, creaky stairs, neighbors who argued through the walls like it was a sport. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I paid the rent. I paid the electric bill. I paid for the stupid parking pass that never actually guaranteed parking. For the first time in my life, I could come home and not explain myself to anyone. My parents hated that. They never said it outright, they just smiled too tight when I showed them the place. My mom ran her finger along the windowsill and said, "You'll have to clean more often." My dad tested the lock twice and said, "This neighborhood's changing, not always for the better." I laughed it off. I was 26. I'd survived roommates, bad relationships, a job that nearly hollowed me out. I thought I was finally free. The first sign I wasn't came on a Tuesday night. I came home late from work, heels off, hair in a messy knot, brain buzzing. I remember because I kicked my shoes into the corner like I always did. The lamp by the couch was on. I never left it on. I hated wasting electricity. I stood there, keys still in my hand, telling myself I must have forgotten. People forget things, that's normal. Then I saw the mail. I kept it stacked neatly on the small table by the door, bills on the bottom, junk on top. That night, it was spread out, fanned like someone had been flipping through it. One envelope was open. My name was underlined in pen. My heart started doing this weird fluttery thing, like it couldn't decide whether to race or stop altogether. I checked the bedroom, bed made, too neatly. I'm not a neat bed maker. I'm a yank the comforter up and call it done kind of person. I walked the apartment slowly, every sense screaming. Nothing was missing, nothing was obviously wrong. I slept with the lights on. The next morning, I called my mom while brushing my teeth. I tried to sound casual. "Hey," I said, toothpaste foam at the corner of my mouth. "Random question. You didn't stop by my place yesterday, did you?" She paused, just a beat too long. "We were in the area," she said. "My father wanted to check the smoke detector." My hand froze mid-brush. "You have a key?" I asked. "Of course we do," she said, like I'd asked if the sky was blue. "What if there was an emergency?" I stared at my reflection. 26 years old, still explaining myself. "Mom," I said slowly, "you can't just come into my apartment." She sighed, heavy and theatrical. "We're your parents." That was it. That was the whole argument. Case closed. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a boundary I could reinforce gently. I changed the locks that weekend anyway, without telling them. I felt guilty the entire time the locksmith worked, like I was doing something wrong. 3 days later, I came home to find the bathroom trash emptied. That's when the panic really set in. They'd gotten a new key, somehow. I didn't know how, and that scared me more than the fact they were still coming in. I confronted them that Sunday at dinner. My mom served pot roast like nothing was wrong. My dad carved it with methodical precision. "I changed the locks," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "You broke into my home." My mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her grip was strong, too strong. "Sweetheart, don't be dramatic." Something cracked in me then. Not all at once, just a hairline fracture. After that, things escalated. I'd come home to find my fridge rearranged, my laundry folded, notes on the counter reminding me to eat better or call more often. Once I found a bag of groceries I hadn't bought, receipts still stapled on top. I started feeling like a guest in my own life. I tried cameras, they unplugged them. I tried leaving notes, they threw them away. Once, I came home early and heard voices inside my apartment. I stood on the stairs, heart pounding, listening to my parents argue about my job, my weight, the way I lived, like I wasn't even a real person, just a problem they were managing. I didn't go in. I sat on the steps and cried until they left. The worst part wasn't the anger. It was the way they acted afterward, smiling, asking about my day, pretending nothing was wrong. Like I was crazy, like I was imagining it. That's when I started planning. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, carefully. I stopped reacting. I stopped arguing. I let them think they'd won. I found a new place across town. Different building, different management. I paid extra for privacy. I told no one. Not my coworkers, not my friends, definitely not my parents. The day I moved, I left everything exactly how they liked it. Bed made, fridge stocked, notes gone. I locked the door behind me and didn't look back. For 3 days, I waited. On the 4th day, my phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was tight, confused, edged with something I'd never heard from her before. "Why isn't your key working?" I leaned back against the wall of my new apartment, heart hammering, a slow smile spreading across my face as I stared at a door no one but me could open. And I said nothing. Not yet. The silence on the line stretched so long I could hear her breathing, short, shallow. I imagined her standing in my old hallway, key in hand, jiggling it again like it might suddenly obey her if she tried harder. "Hello?" she said. "Are you there?" I didn't answer. I ended the call and set my phone face down on the counter like it was something alive that might bite me if I wasn't careful. My new apartment smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. It was quieter than I was used to. No arguing neighbors, no footsteps pacing above me, just the hum of the fridge and my own heartbeat, loud in my ears. I thought I'd feel triumphant, victorious. Instead, I felt suspended, like I'd jumped off something high and was waiting to find out whether there was water below or concrete. An hour later, my dad called. I watched his name light up my phone and felt that old instinct kick in, the one that told me to straighten my posture, lower my voice, make myself smaller. I didn't answer. A text followed almost immediately. "Where are you?" Then another. "We stopped by. Your door won't open." I pictured them outside my old apartment, my mother's mouth pinched tight, my father checking the lock, then checking it again like the universe had made a mistake and he just needed to correct it. My phone buzzed again. "Did you change the locks again?" I smiled, just a little. Then I slid the phone into a drawer and went to take a shower. I stood under the hot water longer than necessary, letting it pound against my shoulders, washing away the last few months of feeling watched. For the first time in a long time, I didn't rush. No one could barge in, no one could comment on the shampoo I used or how long I stayed in there. When I came out, wrapped in a towel, my phone was vibrating so hard it had shifted in the drawer. Missed calls, voicemails, texts stacking on top of each other like bricks. I didn't listen to the voicemails yet. I wasn't ready to hear their voices echoing in this new space. I made dinner instead. Something simple. Something they would have criticized for being too much sodium or not enough vegetables. I ate on the floor, back against the couch, and for the first time, my apartment actually felt like mine. The next morning, I woke up to pounding. Not on my door, on my phone. I rolled over, heart spiking, and checked the screen. 23 missed calls, most from my mom, a few from my dad, one from a number I didn't recognize. Then the text that made my stomach drop. "Are you trying to scare us?" I stared at it, thumb hovering. That word, us, hit harder than I expected, like I'd committed some crime just by choosing not to be reachable. I finally listened to the voicemails. My mom's voice started calm, controlled. "Sweetheart, this isn't funny." By the 3rd message, it had cracked. "Where are you? You didn't tell us you were going anywhere." By the 7th, she was crying. "We're worried. Please call us back." My dad's messages were shorter, sharper. This behavior is unacceptable. You don't disappear on your family. Then the unknown number. Hi, this is Linda from the leasing office. Your parents are here saying there's an emergency. Could you please call us back? I laughed, out loud. It came out brittle and surprised me with its volume. They'd gone to the office, of course they had. When they couldn't control me directly, they'd always gone to authority. Teachers, counselors, managers, anyone they could convince that I needed supervision. I waited an hour before calling back. I kept my voice steady, polite. Hi, I said. There's no emergency. I moved out. There was a pause, longer this time. Your parents said, I moved out, I repeated. I don't live with them. They don't have permission to access my apartment. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. That afternoon, my parents showed up at my work. I saw my dad first through the glass doors, standing stiffly in the lobby like he owned the place. My mom hovered beside him, eyes scanning faces, searching. My coworker leaned over and whispered, are those your parents? I felt the room tilt. My chest tightened. Of course they'd come here. This was the last place they knew they could still reach me. I'll handle it, I said, though my voice sounded far away. I walked out to the lobby, every step heavy. My mom rushed towards me. There you are. What are you doing here? I asked. I didn't hug her. That alone seemed to offend her. We've been calling, my dad said. You didn't respond. I know. My mom's eyes filled instantly. We thought something happened to you. I held her gaze. You broke into my apartment for months. I asked you to stop. We were worried, she said again, like it explained everything. You rearranged my life, so I moved. My dad's jaw clenched. You don't just vanish, you tell us where you're going. No, I said. The word felt strange on my tongue. Solid. I don't. People were watching now. I could feel it. The receptionist pretending not to listen, my coworkers glancing over their monitors. My mom lowered her voice. Where are you living? I smiled, just barely. Somewhere safe. My dad stepped closer. This isn't over. I believed him. That night, I checked my car for trackers. I didn't find any, but the fact that I looked at all made my skin crawl. Over the next week, they tried everything. Guilt, anger, bargaining. They left gifts at my old apartment. Letters slid under the door. They messaged my friends. They called my aunt, my cousin, even my old college roommate. My mom texted, "We're losing sleep over this." My dad texted, "You're making a huge mistake." Then came the one that chilled me. "We just want to talk, in person." I stared at that message for a long time because I knew what talk meant in my family. It meant cornering. It meant talking over. It meant not letting me leave until I gave them something. I didn't respond. 2 nights later, as I was pulling into my new parking spot, I saw a familiar car at the end of the block. My father's. My pulse roared in my ears as I killed the engine and sat there in the dark, watching. The car didn't move. Neither did I. I didn't know how they'd found the neighborhood. I didn't know if they knew which building was mine. All I knew was that the panic they'd let Dem feel was starting to coil back towards me, tighter this time, heavier. I waited until the car finally pulled away, then sat there another 10 minutes just to be sure. Inside, I locked the door. Then I locked it again. I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by boxes I still hadn't unpacked, and realized something unsettling. They weren't panicking because they missed me. They were panicking because they couldn't reach me anymore. And I had a feeling they weren't done trying. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound felt amplified. The click of the heater, a car passing outside, someone's footsteps echoing down the hall. I kept replaying the image of my dad's car idling at the end of the block, the way it had just sat there, like a patient animal. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting, that they'd driven through the area on a hunch, realized they didn't know where I lived, and left. Then I found the note. It was tucked under my windshield wiper, folded neatly in half, like something thoughtful, polite. My hands shook as I opened it. Call us. We're worried. Mom. No address, no accusations, just that soft, familiar tone that always made me feel like the unreasonable one. I sat in my car, staring at the paper, my breath fogging the windshield. They hadn't just found the neighborhood, they'd found my car, which meant they'd either followed me or waited. I crumpled the note and tossed it into the cup holder, then drove to work with my heart pounding the whole way. I changed my routine after that, parked on different streets, left at different times. I stopped going to the same grocery store. I told my manager, carefully, vaguely, that I might have family issues and might need flexibility. She raised an eyebrow but nodded. Whatever you need. My parents, meanwhile, shifted tactics. The messages softened. We're not mad, we just want to understand. You're scaring us. Then they sharpened again. You're being cruel. People don't do this to their parents. If something happens to you, that's on you. That last one sat in my inbox like a threat wrapped in guilt. One evening, I got a call from my aunt. I didn't want to get involved, she said, sounding tired, but your mom is beside herself. I closed my eyes. What did she tell you? That you disappeared, that she doesn't know where you live, that you're punishing them. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. Did she tell you they let themselves into my apartment whenever they wanted? There was a pause. She said you were exaggerating. Of course she did. They're worried, Jenny said gently. You know how they are. I do, I said. That's why I left. After that, the calls from extended family started. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, old family friends, people asking if I was okay, if I was safe, if I could just give them some peace of mind. It felt like being hunted politely. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I got home late, arms full of groceries, brain fried. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and froze. The light in the kitchen was on. I hadn't left it on. My breath caught in my throat. I stood there, groceries digging into my palms, listening. Nothing. I set the bags down slowly, every nerve screaming. The apartment looked normal, too normal. Couch untouched, shoes where I'd left them, but the air felt wrong, disturbed. Then I saw the envelope on the counter. My name written across the front, my mother's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I sat down, heart pounding so hard it made me dizzy. They'd found me. Not just my car, not just the neighborhood. Me. I opened the letter. Sweetheart, we didn't mean to upset you. We just needed to see you were okay. You weren't answering, and a mother knows when something is wrong. We let ourselves in for just a minute. Everything looked fine. You're safe. That's all we wanted. Please stop this. Come talk to us. We're your parents. You can't lock us out forever. I dropped the paper like it burned. They'd been inside again. I checked the lock. No damage, no forced entry. I checked the windows. Closed. Locked. They had a key. Somehow, again. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, my chest tight, tears blurring my vision. Not from sadness this time, but from something hotter. Anger, fear, a dawning realization. This wasn't about love or worry. This was about access. I stood up slowly and grabbed my phone. I called the property manager the next morning and didn't soften my words. I said someone entered my apartment without permission. They are not on the lease. They do not have my consent. There was a beat of silence. Do you know how they got in? No, I said, but I need the locks changed today. By noon, they were. I took the rest of the day off work. I sat in my apartment and waited. The call came that evening. My mom's voice was calm, too calm. The key doesn't work. I said nothing. We went by to drop off some things. You weren't home. I know, I said. Another pause. I could hear my dad breathing in the background. You changed the locks. Yes. You didn't tell us. No. Her voice hardened. This is getting out of hand. I laughed softly. You came into my home without permission. We're your parents. That doesn't make it your home. Silence. Then my dad took the phone. You're forcing us to take this further. My stomach dropped. Further how? We have rights, he said. You're not thinking clearly. I hung up. I spent that night sitting on my couch, lights off, watching the door like it might open on its own. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. You can't hide forever. I stared at it, pulse racing. They were right about one thing. I couldn't hide, but I could disappear. And this time, I wouldn't leave a forwarding address. I didn't disappear overnight. That's what they would have expected. Something dramatic, impulsive, something they could point to later and say, see, she's unstable. Instead, I became boring, predictable, quiet. I answered one text a week. Short, neutral, still alive, still busy. No address, no photos, no slip-ups. I let them think the lock change was the big rebellion, the end of it. I let them believe they'd pushed me as far as I'd go. Meanwhile, I was unraveling my life, thread by thread. I changed my phone number. Not all at once. I ported it, set up a temporary line, told work first, then a couple of friends I trusted. I deleted old apps. I scrubbed my social media until it looked like I barely existed. No check-ins, no tagged photos, no routines on display. I sold my car. That one hurt. I loved that car, but it was a beacon, a way to track me without ever speaking to me. I watched it drive away with a stranger behind the wheel and felt like I was cutting off a limb to save the rest of my body. I started taking the bus, then trains, then rides from people who didn't know my last name. A month passed. My parents escalated, then stalled. I didn't disappear overnight. That's what they would have expected. Something dramatic, impulsive, something they could point to later and say, see, she's unstable. Instead, I became boring, predictable, quiet. I answered one text a week. Short, neutral, still alive, still busy. No address, no photos, no slip-ups. I let them think the lock change was the big rebellion, the end of it. I let them believe they'd pushed me as far as I'd go. Meanwhile, I was unraveling my life, thread by thread. I changed my phone number. Not all at once. I ported it, set up a temporary line, told work first, then a couple of friends I trusted. I deleted old apps. I scrubbed my social media until it looked like I barely existed. No check-ins, no tagged photos, no routines on display. I sold my car. That one hurt. I loved that car, but it was a beacon, a way to track me without ever speaking to me. I watched it drive away with a stranger behind the wheel and felt like I was cutting off a limb to save the rest of my body. I started taking the bus, then trains, then rides from people who didn't know my last name. A month passed. My parents escalated, then stalled. The messages slowed. The guilt lost its sharp edge. The anger burned itself out. Control, I was learning, needs proximity, needs feedback, needs reaction. Without it, it starts to starve. The last voicemail my mom left was almost gentle. We don't know what we did to deserve this, she said, but we're tired. We just want our daughter back. I listened to it twice, not because I believed it, but because I needed to hear it without flinching. I didn't call back. Instead, I signed a new lease. Different city, different name on the mailbox, different version of me answering the door. On moving day, I stood in the middle of my empty apartment, the one they'd broken into, the one they'd claimed without ever asking, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, not closure, space. Weeks later, a message slipped through on an old email account I'd forgotten to delete. "We found your car. We know you're still out there. You can't do this forever." I deleted the email without replying. Because here's the thing they never understood. I wasn't running anymore. I was living somewhere they couldn't reach me, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Somewhere their voices didn't echo automatically in my head. Every now and then, I still check the lock twice. Old habits die hard. Sometimes I wake up from dreams where I hear keys turning that shouldn't exist. But when I open my eyes, it's quiet, and the door stays closed. If you've made it this far and this story hit a little too close to home, you're not alone, even if it feels like it. If you want to know what happened next or how far this really went, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below because I read every single one. And if you don't want to miss the next part of this story, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because some escapes don't end cleanly, they just keep unfolding.